All right, so we are going to transplant rosemary. It's fresh rosemary from my aunt's garden, and fresh citronella that looks a little sad because I perhaps could have chosen to do this morning or last night, but I didn't, so there you go. And so the citronella is the mosquito plant. It's actually part of the geranium family. Hi, gorgeous. Gorgeous darling joins us. And rosemary is awesome for a lot of different things, like grilling or Italian. And what I want to do is to just tell you like where I'm going to put the citronella to give you some ideas about, well, why would I take the time to transplant some of these things? And so let's take a little walk. Thanks for the sweetheart. I'm going to put my hand in front so you don't get dizzy. It does all sorts of crazy stuff, and you can kind of see the house in the background. The house. So what I decided to do is I want to have natural mosquito repellent at the Stevens Suburban Homestead. And so what we did was, when our neighbor gave us some free plants, she gave us some society garlic, which is great for lots of different bugs. And then I planted mint, which a lot of these things have double purposes. You can obviously have mint, especially if you're a southern girl like me. You can have mint juleps, and you can have mint tea. And then we planted some lemongrass. And when you kind of touch on these things, too bad you can't smell on Periscope, it does smell like what you think it's going to smell like, kind of lemony. And look at how crazy this thing has gotten on our deck. Hello, thanks for joining, Irma. And I'm probably going to split this and transplant it around. And let me see if I can give you a view of this whole deck. So the idea is to have the garlics, which we actually have the society garlics planted all the way down, and then to have another set of mint. Hi, Alfonso. Hi, Frederick. And have the mint and have this new citronella kind of fill in the holes. You can see where there's still some grass. Hey, we're trying to get rid of mosquitoes. If you're from a humid area, it's really hard to get rid of mosquitoes except with those chemicals. So we're planting mint, garlic, citronella, and lemongrass. And there's my water catchment system. I'm Joy at the Stevens Suburban Homestead, and let's just get to the rosemary and the citronella clippings. So on the homestead, Stevens Suburban Homestead, oh look, there's a towel. I went on Pinterest and I found how we could do this. So let me go ahead and start. I'm going to flip the camera, say hi, and then hang it on this cool thing. Do you see this kind of thing hanging from my fan? It's a really cool holder. So hi, Joy here, Stevens Suburban Homestead. If y'all want to comment, looks like Alfonso already did. Sometimes you have to follow us, which means you would go to swipe to the right, or you would swipe up and to the right. So who's that? Hello, Ali. Okay. So on Pinterest, it said for the citronella and for the rosemary that you would just put it in water. So I do have some little jars that say Jardine. Aren't they cute? It's not your traditional ball. Little Jardine. It's just water. And then I will put in just a pinch of Epsom salt. Welcome. And what the Pinterest thing said was to make sure it had 3 leaves at the top. So we clearly have enough here. And you want to clip the stem. My aunt clipped it really long. So guess what? I get more clippings. And then it said to clip off the extra leaves because the nutrients that are in this jar, you want them to go into rooting. So out of this space, whoa, okay, here we go. Out of this space is where a root will supposedly pop up. And so you just want to have a few leaves. There's actually even some new growth on here. So that's exciting. I'm gonna clip one more off. It needs a little bit, the leaves to get the sunlight, or for the, gosh, what's it called, y'all? Come on, all my scientists. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about, where the sunlight turns the green, it keeps it green and growing. So just stick it into the water. All right, I'm gonna take another one, because we have so much of it. It's so great. My aunt was so generous with this. Citronella is great in a lot of different regions, but it will freeze. So if you happen to be up north, unlike me, I'm in the Houston area, you'll want to probably plant it in a pot. If you happen to be in the hill country where I got these from, Aunt Peggy had them in a pot, and she had them kind of in the shade where they were getting ambient sunlight, because she needed to be able to water them often, and that hot sun of the hill country, it would probably have just scorched it. Texas has really hot sun because we're closer to the equator. That is a fact. I did not make that up. Haha. Anybody here from Texas online or on here, or where are other regions, or anybody who's ever grown citronella? It'd be so fun to hear from you, especially if you've done this before and you know what you're doing. On the Stevens Suburban Homestead, I do videos to kind of help you. Hey, okay, yay! Oh, hey, Alfonso, good. I like to explore, and sometimes I notice when I would do things, people would be like, where do you find the time? Where do you find the ideas? And so I thought, well, I'll just do some videos, because to me, it's second nature to be curious and to be not afraid to try something and totally fail and look like kind of like an idiot to your husband. But to others, maybe it seems a little more scary. So that's it for citronella. You saw that I trimmed off the extra leaves. There's actually 4 clippings in here. What the Pinterest said, that's our joke around our house. We always say like the Pinterest or the Google. It says that the roots will come up within a week to 4 weeks, depending on your temperature. Since we're humid here and we're still a little warm, I believe that this should work pretty well. Here's another tip. Actually, I probably have one more in here I could use. Whenever I've done seedlings like this, like cuttings, welcome. Is it Saladak? Whenever I've done cuttings like this, like my tomatoes, I actually took like 25 cuttings of our spring tomatoes and ended up with only, after all said and done, hardening and planting them in the ground, all that, I only had 4 tomato plants that actually are growing. Now 4 is good, but that tells you if you want to transplant for free, which is one of the benefits of this, you know, grabbing some stuff from your neighbors and not having to pay, that you want to over seedling them, or however you call it. Actually, no. Great question. Okay, so there's something called hardening. So you want the roots to grow a little longer, so you want to keep them inside another week to 2 weeks. Again, just a tiniest pinch of Epsom salt. Let me grab a little real quick. I'm not going to move the camera. Just hang out for like 10 seconds. You can get Epsom salt at Walgreens or wherever. Look, it's just a little crystal. It's actually not salt, so pay really close attention to this. This is Epsom salt, E-P-S-O-M, and it helps the roots grow and it helps the plants green up. So when those roots come out, you want to let it go for another week or 2 to build stronger roots. Then I take them and plant them in dirt inside, and I do a really saturated dirt when I take them things out that have just developed roots. I mean super saturated, to the point of like wet, like Swampville, for about a week. Then I start to let it go where you're only watering like every other day or so. Keep in mind we're Houston. We are very humid. So if you are up north, or if you're in a region where you don't have a lot of humidity, that first week when you put your seedlings from the water that have roots into dirt, you want to make sure it doesn't dry out. For us, it's not a problem. Yes, very humid. I know, it's like 100 degrees here today too again. Anyway, I hope it's nicer for the rest of y'all elsewhere. And then after about a week or so in the dirt, you will have some dye, unless you're just super duper green thumb. And then you take them outside to where I was talking about that ambient lighting. You might want to put them under a deck or somewhere under a tree or something, you know, where it's mostly shady for about a week. Because especially if you're in a hot area, you go from inside temperatures to outside. It's called hardening. Then after that week, you can take the plant and put it in the ground wherever you want it. And I know this sounds like a spa environment, but when I do new plants, even stuff I buy from the store, into the dirt that first week, I actually will put like a little umbrella over them, or I'll makeshift like a little, now I don't mean covering it, like touching it, but like I won't let the full 6 to 8 hours of sun hit a new seedling that I've planted, because in Houston, it'll just burn it up. Now, again, elsewhere, it may be different. Okay, so citronella, we're done with this one. We'll put this in a sunny window, not to where like it's 100 degrees though. I mean, a closed window, just where it can get that ambient lighting. I hope I'm using the word ambient right. Anyway, I just make up words all the time anyway. Okay, so let's talk about rosemary plantings. I really didn't think it was possible, but Aunt Peggy had beautiful rosemary, and we had a huge, like 5 foot, okay, maybe 4 foot around diameter bush. And then in Houston and Texas, you might remember, even in Oklahoma, we had about 30 inches in about 6 weeks, 30 inches of rain. And rosemary and many other things, like an Esperanza tree, for instance. I know apple trees. A couple of things you have to do your research, especially like xeriscaping, they hate to be waterlogged. And we lost a beautiful, what looked to me like 10-year-old rosemary bush. Because as you know, rosemary, or maybe you don't know, it doesn't grow quickly. So we lost the whole thing. So Aunt Peggy gave me this, and because it didn't like to be waterlogged, I actually put it in some super soppy soil, because I thought, well, it needs soil rather than water. But I was wrong, and that's okay. I'm wrong a lot, and I'll get over it. And so I took big stems on the Pinterest. It said to take little stems because they're greener, they're not as woody, and the woody stems actually take longer to grow the roots, and you have less likelihood of them actually surviving. So luckily I got a nice bush where there's actually like 10 or 12 of these, and now that I'm looking at it and chatting with you, this is not an appropriate size vehicle for the small ones. It's too wide of a mouth. So I'm just gonna grab a smaller one real quick. You don't want them to be completely immersed. This is actually a candle holder. Oh, it has wax in it. Hang on, I'm almost there. There we go. So I'm gonna get this candle holder for these little shoots because it will allow enough water in here, and it has a little bit smaller rim because you don't want the whole thing. And you'll see, let's start. We cut the little shoots. Boop. And if you want to see like the full article, or you don't have time to watch all this, just go to my Pinterest page. It's Stevens Suburban Homestead. It's actually not the page, it's a board, and you can see. Now we're gonna clip this off, and don't throw this away. You could dry this. We'll talk about that at the very end. And so you have a little bit here. You can see my finger, so it's like 1.5 inches of stem, not so woody. See, it's a little bit pliable. And then you have this. You actually want to go a little bit further. It did say, again, just like on this citronella, that you want to take off these because this is what's growing and has nutrients. And you can also kind of take your fingernail, or if you don't have fingernails, I keep going the wrong way, sorry. I just peeled off some of that bark because that will open up the possibility for more roots. I don't know why all this works. I'm not a scientist, I'm just a homesteader. Okay. So let's put the water in here. And again, it did not say on Pinterest to do this, but I have had so much luck with Epsom salt. I'm just gonna put a few grains in, just like 6, because it's such a small piece. It's actually like a 1 tablespoon to 1 gallon ratio if you're doing a whole like gallon of water to water some plants with the Epsom salt. It's just really wonderful. It's actually magnesium, not salt. So that is gonna be how we do it. We just clip several of these. And I'll do this at the same time where I'll start to peel the rosemary, and I'll do it a little bit not so gently so that I can peel off that bark when I do it. Then we just pop it in. And I'm gonna do a lot of these because, again, I just talked about this with the citronella earlier, if you weren't here, that when you do transplants, you are inevitably going to have many of them, like maybe even a 50% ratio, die. It's just a fact of life because it's rough. I mean, we're scraping them, and we're cutting them, and we're bringing them out of their element. These guys came from the hill country of Texas. Welcome, man. So you want to save these. Also save these. You can use them in sketty or like on a grill or something, and we'll dry those later. If you don't have dinner plans, you could probably put them in something today. Okay. So the more of these you can do, the better. And then when, if I'm not going to use all of this, obviously, because these are too short. See the difference? This is like 50% longer. They're too short to get them to grow. So what I will do is I'll just peel the rest of these after the broadcast, and then I'll just dry it. So we hardly waste anything on the homestead. There's so many uses for these things. People throw so much away. But if you have the time, I realize not everybody has the time. If you have the time, then it's really fun to make your own stuff. And think about all the money you save if you dry your own herbs. My gosh, some of those herbs are like $4 a bottle. The other thing is we have chickens, and our chickens love fresh herbs. Again, we're just stripping these, and what we're doing is we're trying to get them to grow roots. So we strip, and then, let me see, I'm just kind of peeling them. So they go from brown, and I'm peeling off the outer piece. It's kind of greenish. All right, so I'll probably end this so you don't get too bored. I'm gonna go ahead and do like 6 or 7 more of these, and then let's talk quickly again in case you came in late. We put these in the water for a week to 6 weeks. The differential is gonna be your temperature. So where we are, hot and humid Houston, they're gonna grow roots faster. We also have brighter sun. Photosynthesis, that's the word I was looking for. The photosynthesis works a little, I think a little faster in the sunnier regions. Up north, you may have to wait a little longer, but don't be discouraged. Actually on the Pinterest pin I found, they said some rosemary, they just had it and they just left it in there because they were doing a test. It took months to grow roots. I'm a little impatient for that, but we'll try it. So with any seedlings, you wanna put them in the water first, let them grow roots. Once the roots are appearing, they're just like little bitty white, almost like hair-like strands. Let them grow in the water a little longer, like another week or 2. Then you would gently plant them into very wet soil inside, let them get used to the soil for a week or 2. Then you would take them out to a shaded area outside to get acclimated to the temperature where you are. And you would let them, you know, stay for a week or 2, and then you would plant them in the ground. I guess the other caveat, since it is the middle of September, is again, if I'm in zone 9, I bet in zone 8 and 7, you'd be okay to plant these things outside in the ground now. But if you're any zone higher than that, I recommend leaving them in a pot, because I know citronella will freeze, and any kind of small seedling that goes through your freeze is, you know, probably not gonna make it. So I would just keep it in a pot over the winter until spring or until your last frost, and then you could plant it in the ground if you'd like, or you can just, you know, take it back outside. So luckily we're in a zone where we don't have to worry about that very much. Okay, so that's how you would do almost any seedlings. I just happen to have the citronella for mosquitoes, natural mosquito repellent, and the rosemary because I love it. And look at, just from those few strips, look at how much rosemary I took off of there. I will take this and I will put them on a cookie sheet. I'll do all of them. I will put them in our convection oven, which you do not have to have convection, but it's a little faster and more energy efficient. You could do it on the lowest setting of your oven, and you could just put it in for, I think I do like 20 minutes at a time, and I look and test and see when they're crunchy. The reason I use the oven, which again uses energy, I know, is because I have tried 4 different ways to dry herbs in Houston, and I cannot do it because it's too humid. It ends up rotting or losing its flavor or getting too much dust from sitting out. So if you live in an area that is probably less than 50% humidity, you could lay these and just on the counter. You could lay them gently in a hanging rack. I have a beautiful one that I won't be using for herbs. And they would dry in about a week. So there's lots of options. We try to do the energy efficient way, but you know, if you live in Houston, you're just not going to be able to dry herbs, in my opinion, not in the spring, summer, or fall months, perhaps in the winter. All right, so Joy here at the Stevens Suburban Homestead. I love that you're here. I love that you're excited about trying to propagate. It could be any herb, it could be any plant, almost any plant, excuse me. I advise you to not only watch videos or go to Google, but you could go to Pinterest. And whenever we're working on a project here, I research on Pinterest and Google first and usually pin it. So you can kind of see what we did last month. I have other videos on YouTube and on our Facebook page, all under Stevens Suburban Homestead. And we'll keep doing these fun videos. I just whip out the camera when I know I'm already going to be doing something. I might as well share it with other stay-at-home moms or other gardeners or homesteaders. So I just love that you tuned in and that you're here, and I appreciate you. Hi. Thanks for watching, and I will see you. I hope you follow us. Okay, bye-bye.